I inherited my son's old truck. When I turned on the GPS, I discovered a hidden address he had secretly saved. I thought my son had simply forgotten to delete it, but I followed the coordinates and uncovered a horrifying truth in a cabin deep in the wilderness. Inside were surveillance screens displaying images of my own home, and on the screen, I saw the person I trusted most plotting against me. My blood ran cold. I realized if they wanted the money, I would make them lose it all. I'm grateful you're here today. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. I love connecting with this community. If you inherited something and discovered a hidden secret, inside, would you follow that lead or leave it alone? Quick note: this is a fictional story for entertainment and reflection. Characters are imagined, but the deeper message about trust and family carries real meaning. Let's begin. The organ played Amazing Grace for the third time that morning. I stood at the back of Reynolds' funeral chapel, watching mourners file past my son's casket. Brandon Mitchell, 39 years old, was gone. The flowers were two bright white lilies everywhere, smelling sweet enough to choke on. Stephanie had planned it all. When I'd offered to help, she'd said, "I've got it handled, Henry. You just rest." Rest. Like I could rest with my boy in a box. I looked at Brandon one last time before they closed the lid. They'd made him look peaceful, but I knew better. I'd seen him sleep 1,000 Saturday mornings, 7 years old, curled up after cartoons, or home from MIT exhausted from finals. This wasn't sleep. This was gone. Catherine would have known what to say. My wife had been dead 5 years now. Cancer took her quick in 2019. I'd thought that was the worst day of my life. I was wrong. Ms. Reynolds, the funeral director, touched my elbow. "Mr. Cooper, the service is starting. Front pew." I shook my head. "Back's fine." Front was for Stephanie and Travis. Travis Bennett, Brandon's best friend since they were 7. Grew up 3 houses down, spent more time at our table than his own. Now he stood beside my son's widow, with his hand on her shoulder, leaning in to whisper something. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe grief was making me see things. But my gut said different. 2 hours after we buried Brandon at Forest Hills Cemetery, a lawyer herded us into a private room. Betty Anderson, my neighbor, squeezed my hand as we sat down. The last will and testament of Brandon James Mitchell, the young lawyer read. Executed September 20th, 2024. 6 weeks ago. Brandon had updated his will 6 weeks ago. To my wife, Stephanie Ann Mitchell, all life insurance benefits, $3.5 million, doubled to $7 million in the event of accidental death. My hands went cold. All patent rights and royalties valued at $35 million, and the property at 456 Scenic View Drive, including all assets therein. Stephanie didn't react, just nodded. To my father, Henry James Cooper. The lawyer looked up. I leave my 2016 Toyota Tacoma currently parked at 3421 Dayton Boulevard. Silence. Betty's grip tightened on my hand. $42 million. That's what Stephanie got. The house, the patents, the insurance from the brake failure that killed Brandon on some back road in Georgia. Me, a 12-year-old pickup with 155,000 miles. I wasn't mad about the money. I'd worked 40 years at the Volkswagen plant, owned my house free and clear. What broke me was this: my son had left me a truck. Not his MIT ring. Not the watch I'd given him at graduation. A truck. Like I was some stranger. Stephanie stood. Thank you. Henry, if you need help moving it, Travis can. I don't need help. I got up too fast, chair scraping. I can drive my own damn truck. I walked out. The next 3 days blurred together. Casseroles appeared on my porch. Betty's tuna noodle, something from church. I barely ate. Just sat in my recliner, staring at walls, thinking about Brandon. Day 4. Betty told me Stephanie had bought a Lexus, brand new SUV. Brandon had been dead 4 days. Day 5, someone's cousin spotted her in Atlanta. Shopping trip, arms full of bags, laughing with Travis. Day 6. I couldn't take sitting anymore. I went to the driveway and looked at the Tacoma. Silver paint faded to gray, dented bumper, duct-taped mirror. Nothing special. Nothing worth leaving in a will. I climbed in. The seat was adjusted for Brandon, taller than me. I pushed it back, and that's when I saw it. The GPS was blinking, not the normal blue, red, pulsing like a heartbeat. I pressed the screen. One saved destination, Dad's legacy. Coordinates Cohutta Wilderness, North Georgia, 90 miles away, and underneath an audio file. My hand shook as I pressed play. Dad. Brandon's voice filled the cab, clear as day. If you're hearing this, I need you. Don't tell anyone. Don't call the police. Just come find me. Follow the coordinates. I'll explain everything when you get there. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you sooner. I'm sorry for all of this. But I need you to trust me one more time. Please, Dad. Come find me. The message ended. I sat there for 5 minutes, hands gripping the wheel, trying to breathe. Brandon's voice, recorded after the will. Maybe days before the accident. Maybe hours. Come find me. Cohutta Wilderness. Middle of nowhere. No cell service, barely any roads. If there was even a chance my son needed me, I couldn't ignore it. That night, I didn't sleep, just stared at a map, tracing the route with my finger. 90 miles. Hour and a half, maybe 2. At 5:30 a.m., I made coffee, packed a duffel-clothes medication flashlight, the hunting knife Catherine gave me. At 6, I climbed into the Tacoma and entered the coordinates. The engine turned over on the second try. I backed out as the sun cracked the horizon, painting the Tennessee sky pink. My hands were steady. My mind was clear for the first time in a week. Brandon needed me, and I was coming. The Tacoma's headlights cut through the pre-dawn dark. I-75 South stretched empty ahead, just me, a few semis, and the hum of tires on asphalt. 6 a.m., 90 miles to go. I kept the radio off, didn't want music, just needed to think. About Brandon's voice on that recording. About coordinates leading to the middle of nowhere. About whether I was chasing hope or losing my mind. The sun came up around Dalton, turning the Georgia sky from black to pale blue. I thought about Catherine. What she'd say if she could see me now, following a GPS message into the wilderness. She'd call me a stubborn old fool. Then she'd buckle up and come anyway. My phone rang just past the state line. Stephanie. I let it ring twice, forced my voice calm. Hello? Henry. Good morning. I've been worried about you. Too bright. Too cheerful. You haven't been answering texts. Been sleeping mostly. Not much else to do. I was thinking I'd bring you lunch this afternoon. We could go through Brandon's things. Not ready for that yet. Silence. Then, where are you? You sound like you're in a car. My hands tightened on the wheel. Running to the store. Out of coffee. At 6 in the morning. Couldn't sleep. Another pause. You sure you don't want company? I'm fine, Stephanie. I'll call you later. I hung up before she could respond. My heart hammered. She knew something was off. That tone when she asked where I was, the edge underneath the sweetness. I pressed harder on the gas. The interstate gave way to state routes around 9:30, then county roads with more potholes than pavement. Trees closed in thick Georgia pines and bare hardwoods reaching like skeleton hands. My cell service died somewhere near Ellijay. The GPS beeped. Turn right onto unmarked road. I almost missed it. Just a dirt track between two trees barely wide enough for the truck. Branches scraped the sides as I crept forward, following the path deeper into wilderness. No houses, no power lines, nothing but woods and deer. Then the cabin appeared. Single-story, rough-cut logs, rusty metal roof. One window with a curtain drawn. Woodpile stacked against the side. It looked abandoned, except singing. Quiet, barely audible, but there. A voice I'd know anywhere. All my trials, Lord, soon be over. My son's voice. I was out of the truck before I realized I'd moved. My hand shook as I raised it to knock. The singing stopped. Footsteps. A shadow behind the curtain. The door opened. Brandon stood there, thinner. Needed a shave. Wearing an old flannel I'd given him years ago. But it was him. Same dark eyes, same crooked nose, same scar on his eyebrow from falling off his bike at 7. Alive. Dad. His voice cracked. I couldn't speak, couldn't move, just stared at my boy standing in front of me when I'd watched them bury him 3 days ago. Dad, he said again, stepping forward, and then I was grabbing him, pulling him into a hug so tight and I thought I might break him. He held me just as hard. We were both crying ugly, gasping sobs. You're alive, I managed. You're alive. I'm sorry. His words came muffled against my shoulder. God, Dad, I'm so sorry. I couldn't tell you. If they knew, you knew. Who? I pulled back, holding him at arm's length. Up close, I could see exhaustion in his face. Dark circles, hollowed cheeks. Who did this? Brandon glanced over my shoulder, scanning the trees. Come inside, quickly. The cabin was sparse cot in one corner, camping stove, battery lantern. A laptop sat open on a folding table showing multiple camera feeds. Beside it, folders, a recorder, hard drives. She tried to kill me, Dad. He turned to face me. Stephanie, for 6 months she poisoned me. And when that didn't work fast enough, she and Travis cut my brake lines. The world tilted. Travis, my best friend, 30 years. He laughed without humor. They tried to murder me for money. I sank onto the cot. The accident, I staged it. Faked the crash, used a dummy, planted DNA. Jake Morrison at the fire department helped. He's the only one who knows besides you. Why not go to the police? Because I needed evidence. He gestured at the laptop. 6 months of surveillance, audio recordings, medical records, bank statements, everything, including, he looked at me, including their plan to kill you next. My blood went cold. That what? You were target number 2. The brake lines on your truck, Travis cut them 3 days ago. You just haven't driven far enough yet. I thought about the Tacoma outside. About Joe Crawford checking it next week. Joe would have found it, I whispered. And saved your life. Just like Betty saved you when Stephanie tried to push you down the stairs. Just like you didn't take those pills she planted. I stared at him. I don't, Dad. Brandon knelt in front of me. The woman you welcomed into our family. The woman you loaned $15,000. She's been trying to kill us both for $42 million. He stood, walked to a door at the back. Come on, I need to show you everything. I followed on legs that didn't feel like mine. The back room was windowless, lit by a lantern. Walls covered with printouts, photos, timelines. A corkboard held surveillance shots, Stephanie and Travis kissing in what looked like Brandon's bedroom. Bank statements highlighted, text messages, medical reports, In the center, a folding chair faced the laptop. "Sit down, Dad." Brandon's voice was gentle. "What I'm about to show you, it's going to hurt." I sat. My heart pounded in my ears. Brandon pulled up a video file. His finger hovered over play. "This is from February 14th, Valentine's Day." He looked at me. "You ready?" I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. He pressed play. The bedroom filled the screen. My son's bedroom's sage green walls, I'd helped him paint the oak dresser, Catherine's housewarming lamp on the nightstand. February 14th, 2:17 p.m. The bed wasn't empty. Stephanie lay there, dark hair spread across the pillow. But the man beside her wasn't Brandon. Broader shoulders. When he turned his head, Travis Bennett's face, my stomach dropped. They were laughing. Stephanie traced a finger down his arm. He caught her hand, kissed it. The casual intimacy, that's what broke me. This wasn't new. This was routine. 8 months, Brandon said behind me. Probably longer. I installed cameras in August, but the affair started at least in February. Travis Bennett, the boy I'd taught to throw a curveball, who'd been best man at my son's wedding, who'd stood beside Brandon's casket looking devastated. All of it a lie. "There's more, Dad." Brandon closed the folder, opened another. "This is harder." A kitchen appeared. Brandon's blue backsplash, the coffee maker I'd bought them last Christmas. 7:04 a.m., October 3rd. Brandon walked in, hair wet from the shower, poured coffee, turned to the fridge. Stephanie entered in her robe, smiled, said something. Brandon kissed her cheek. While his back was turned, Stephanie pulled a small plastic bag from her pocket. White powder. She glanced at Brandon, then quickly tapped powder into his mug, maybe half a teaspoon. Stirred it, tucked the bag away. Brandon returned, picked up the mug, took a drink, kissed her forehead, left for work. Stephanie waited until the garage door closed. Then she pulled out her phone, smiling. The video ended. "Arsenic," Brandon said. Every morning for 6 months, he pulled up medical records. Patient Brandon Mitchell. Date July 15th, 2024. Blood arsenic 0.8 milligrams per liter. Normal range less than 0.03. 26 times higher than normal. Enough to cause hair loss, fatigue, nausea. Enough to kill me eventually. His jaw tightened. But she got impatient. I thought about those months. Brandon looking tired at Sunday dinners. Stephanie hovering, asking if he felt okay. When you got tested, I didn't confront her. If she knew, I knew she'd run or speed up. So I acted normal. Stopped drinking her coffee. Started documenting. He pulled up an audio file. September 28th. Recorded in her car. He pressed play. Stephanie's voice. "Can't keep waiting. It's been 8 months and he's still walking around." Travis. "The arsenic was your idea. You said slow and natural. Slow is too slow. I'm tired of pretending. Tired of playing housewife." "So what do you want to do?" Stephanie's voice turned cold. "The brakes. Stage an accident. He drives that winding highway to his cabin every other weekend. One bad curve. And if someone checks, who's going to check? Everyone knows he's been sick. They'll say he fell asleep at the wheel. And after, we wait a few months, play grieving, then take the money and disappear. Cayman Islands. How much? 7 million life insurance doubled for accidental death. 35 million from the patents. Call it 42 million total. A whistle from Travis and his dad. My blood froze. What about him? The patents. If something happens to you, they go to Henry. Then Henry has an accident too. Old man Bad Heart slips in the shower. Who's going to question it? The audio clicked off. I sat there numb, hearing my name like I was just another obstacle to eliminate. She was going to kill me. The words felt unreal. I couldn't let that happen. That's why I disappeared. Brandon pulled up another video. October 12th, 2:14 a.m. A garage, my workbench, my tools. The Tacoma sat center frame. Travis crept in through the side door. Flashlight, bolt cutters, crawled under the truck. I watched him position the cutters on the brake line. Squeeze, twist. The line separated, fluid dripping. He crawled out, wiped his hands, looked around. Left. 2:19 a.m. 5 hours later, I'd have climbed into that truck. Joe Crawford saved your life, Brandon said quietly. I stared at the frozen image. Travis Bennett under my truck, the boy I'd treated like a second son. How did you fake it? I managed. Called Jake Morrison, high school buddy, fire department now. Told him everything. We staged the crash, mannequin in my clothes, pre-planted, DNA samples. Rigged the brake line to fail on Highway 28. Jake made sure his crew responded, confirmed the body before the coroner arrived. The will, written 2 weeks before. Left you the Tacoma because I knew you'd check it. Knew you'd find the GPS. He looked at me. I couldn't risk calling. If they knew you knew, they'd kill me faster. Brandon nodded. I thought about the funeral, the will reading, Stephanie's concerned calls, Travis's hand on her shoulder. All performance, all covering 42 million reasons to murder. Brandon's expression darkened. Dad, they're not done. What do you mean? The will's been read. They know the patents revert to you if anything happens to Stephanie. He turned back to the laptop. Which makes you a problem. And they don't leave problems alive. My mouth went dry. Brandon. You're next on their list, Dad. His voice was steady, but his hands shook on the keyboard. I've been monitoring your house remotely since I disappeared. Watching, documenting. Stikoto, watching what? He opened another folder. The screen filled with video thumbnails. Dates, locations, my house, my street. They've already tried. Brandon looked at me. 3 times. The room tilted. 3. Sit down, Dad. He gestured to the chair. What I'm about to show you, my legs gave out. I sat. Brandon pulled up the first video. My front porch. October 17th, the timestamp read. 6:47 p.m. I watched myself walking to the front door, arms full of grocery bags. Stephanie appeared behind me near the stairs. She glanced around, positioned herself. Then Betty Anderson's hand shot out from off-screen, grabbing my arm. She was going to push you, Brandon said quietly. Down the concrete steps. At your age, that fall. He didn't finish. I couldn't breathe. Brandon opened the second video. My kitchen. October 22nd. Stephanie letting herself in with her key. Me in the bathroom. Her pulling pills from her purse, swapping them into my medication organizer. Sedatives, Brandon said. If you'd taken them with your heart medication, you'd have gone into cardiac arrest within an hour. The third video. My garage. Yesterday. Travis under the Tacoma at 2 a.m. cutting brake lines. 3 times. 3 times I should have died. Betty saved you on the stairs, Brandon said. Pure luck. You didn't take the pills, more luck. And Joe's about to find the brake lines. He closed the laptop. But luck runs out, Dad. I stared at him. At my son who'd faked his death to stay alive. Who'd been hiding in this cabin watching killers hunt us both. So what do we do? My voice came out hoarse. Brandon met my eyes. We end this. Brandon pulled up another file. Dad, you need to see how close you came. Each time. The screen showed my front porch. October 17th, 6:47 p.m. I watched myself climbing the steps with grocery bags, not paying attention. Stephanie appeared from around the corner. She glanced up and down the street, then positioned herself behind me at the top of the stairs. 3 steps from the top, she moved. Not a shove, subtler. Her hip bumped my shoulder just enough to throw me off balance. The bag slipped. I lurched sideways. Betty Anderson's hand shot out from next door, grabbed my forearm, yanked me back. Henry, good Lord, you almost went down. Stephanie's face flashed annoyance before becoming concern. Oh my God, are you okay? These steps are so dangerous. I'm fine, just clumsy. Not clumsy, Betty said, looking at Stephanie. You bumped him. The video ended. I thought I tripped, I said. Those concrete steps, 12 of them. At your age, that fall would have killed you. Skull fracture, brain bleed. Brandon opened another video. 5 days later. My kitchen. October 22nd, 3:15 p.m. The day Stephanie brought me soup. On screen, I got up from the table. I'll be right back. Heading for the bathroom. The moment I left, Stephanie pulled a Ziploc bag from her purse. Blue pills. She opened Tuesday's compartment in my pill organizer, dumped out my white beta blockers, replaced them with blue ones. Pocketed the originals. 40 seconds total. When I returned, she was smiling. Your coffee's getting cold, Henry. Ambien, Brandon said. 20 milligram sleeping pills. If you'd taken those with your heart medication, cardiac arrest within an hour. I tried to remember Tuesday. I had coffee with Joe that morning, forgot my pills, skipped them that night. Luck. Brandon pulled up the third video. October 24th, 11:42 p.m. My garage. Travis slipped in through the side door wearing dark clothes, flashlight bolt cutters, crawled under the Tacoma. I watched him position the cutters on the brake line. Squeeze. The line separated, clean fluid dripping. 4 minutes. Then gone. Professional cut, Brandon said. If you'd driven more than 20 miles at highway speed, total brake failure. He pulled up another video, Joe Crawford's garage. October 26th, yesterday. Joe was under my truck on a creeper checking things during an oil change. He stopped, rolled out, got his phone. Henry, Joe, your brake line's been cut. Don't drive anywhere. Walk down here. Brandon paused it. Joe saved your life. You were planning to drive to the grocery store the next morning. Highway 81. That first big curve. I couldn't finish. 3 times. Hours away from dying. Brandon opened a folder. There's more. Marcus Webb, Stephanie's financial advisor. Documents filled the screen. Legal paperwork. Physician reports. Who is he? 42. Been helping Stephanie since July. Brandon scrolled through. Forged conservatorship petition claiming you have dementia, can't manage your affairs. Fake doctor's signature, fake cognitive tests. All to declare you mentally incompetent. Why? The patents. If something happens to Stephanie, they go to you. But if you're declared incompetent, your conservator controls them. Stephanie named Marcus Webb as conservator. So Webb gets the patents, transfers them to Stephanie's estate. $35 million, completely legal. You'd be in a nursing home with no control while they liquidate everything. Brandon pulled up bank records. Webb owes $180,000 in gambling debts. Stephanie paid him $50,000 to help, plus promised a cut when the patents sold. And Stephanie, $675,000 in debt. Credit cards, loans, gambling. Travis owes $725,000 real estate failures, sports betting. Brandon turned to me. Combined $1.4 million in debt. Looking at $42 million if they could eliminate us both. The numbers made me dizzy. They tried to kill you 3 times in 2 weeks because they're desperate. Debt collectors closing in, and you're all that stands between them and freedom. I thought about Stephanie's concerned calls, her visits, her offers to help, all covering murder. Why didn't you tell me? The question came out harsh. Why didn't you warn me? Brandon met my eyes. Because they were watching you, Dad. Cameras on your street, tracking your phone. If I'd contacted you, if you'd acted different, they'd have known. And they'd have killed you immediately. Not carefully. Just gone. So I was bait. I let Betty and Joe and luck keep you alive while I gathered evidence to bury them forever. His voice cracked. I've been watching that screen for 2 weeks, watching them get closer, watching you almost die 3 times. You think that was easy? I looked at my son, at the exhaustion he'd been carrying alone. No, I said quietly. I don't imagine it was. Brandon pulled up a calendar. It's October 26th. In 2 weeks, they'll try again. The patent transfer timeline is closing. They're running out of time. So what do? We set a trap. Make them think you're still clueless, still vulnerable. He started typing. And when they come for you again, we'll be ready. Morning light filtered through the cabin window. Day 9. Brandon already had his laptop open, typing rapidly. We need law enforcement, he said. Though evidence this strong requires official channels, or it falls apart in court. Who do we call? Detective Linda Foster, Chattanooga PD Homicide Division. 15 years, clean record. No connections to Stephanie or Travis. He pulled out his phone. 3 rings. Detective Foster. Detective, my name is Brandon Mitchell. I need to meet with you about a murder conspiracy. Today, in person. Alone. Silence. Then, Brandon Mitchell. The software engineer who died 2 weeks ago. I'm alive. And I have evidence of 3 attempted murders, financial fraud, and conspiracy. But if you bring backup, they'll disappear. Another pause. Where are you? Brandon gave coordinates. How soon? 2 hours. This better not be a prank. It's not. Bring a laptop. Detective Linda Foster arrived at 1:30 p.m., mid-40s, sharp eyes. She walked up alone, hand near her holster. Brandon met her at the door. Detective Foster, thank you. She studied him. You're supposed to be dead. I was, for 2 weeks. Now I need to stay alive long enough to put my wife and her lover in prison. Show me what you have. For 90 minutes, Brandon walked her through everything. Affair videos, arsenic tests, kitchen surveillance, murder planning audio. Travis cutting my brake line. Foster took notes, verified timestamps, asked sharp questions. When Brandon played the September 28th recording, Stephanie and Travis discussing killing me, Foster's jaw tightened. And that's admissible. Tennessee is one-party consent. Foster turned to me. Mr. Cooper, you're the target of 3 murder attempts. If we arrest them today, they lawyer up immediately. We might lose opportunities to gather more evidence. What do you propose? A controlled confrontation. You return home, act normal, lure them into revealing themselves one final time with police monitoring. We get them to incriminate themselves on tape. Riskier, but airtight. When? Brandon asked. Day 14, evening, 3 days before the patent deadline. They'll be desperate. Foster pulled up a calendar. Mr. Cooper goes home day 12, makes contact, sets up a meeting for day 14, 7 p.m. How do we bait them? Tell Stephanie you found something of Brandon's. Legal documents about patents. She'll come, she won't be able to resist. And then, Brandon hides in your garage. I'll position Officer Garcia and myself outside with full surveillance. When they arrive, we let them hang themselves. Then we arrest. What if they're armed? Then we intervene immediately. But they prefer methods that look natural: poison, accidents, fraud. They won't bring guns. Foster stood. I need copies of everything: videos, audio, medical records. I'll secure warrants, but this stays confidential. Brandon handed her 3 USB drives. Everything's here, chain of custody included. Day 12, Mr. Cooper returns home. Day 13, he makes contact. Day 14, 7 p.m., we spring the trap. She looked at us. This is dangerous. It won't fail, Brandon said. We've planned everything. Let's hope so. Foster headed out, then turned. Mr. Mitchell, what you did, faking your death, protecting your father, that took courage. Running doesn't stop them, Brandon said. Evidence does. After Foster left, Brandon and I reviewed the plan. Day 12, you drive home, Brandon said. Go to Joe's garage for an oil change. He'll find the cut brake line. Act shocked. Ask him to document it, but not report it yet. Will he agree? Joe's known you 40 years. He'll trust you. Day 13. Evening. Call Stephanie. Tell her you found something in my papers about patents. Legal documents you don't understand. Ask if she can come tomorrow evening to help. She'll come. She can't resist. The patents are why they're doing this. She'll think you're handing her everything. Day 14. I arrive at 6:45. Hide in the garage. Foster and Garcia position outside at 6:50. You let them in at 7. We record everything. When they reveal enough arrests. And if they try something, Foster moves in fast, but they won't. They think you're a confused old man who trusts them. That night I barely slept. What if Stephanie suspected? What if the plan failed? But every time doubt crept in, I thought about the videos. Stephanie poisoning Brandon 47 times. Travis cutting my brake line. The recording planning my death. They'd tried to kill us both. For money. Now it was time to make them pay. Day 12, I packed my bag. Brandon walked me to the Tacoma. 3 days, he said. 3 days. I agreed. I drove to Crawford's Auto Repair at 10 a.m. Joe came out. Henry, oil change? Yeah, been putting it off. 20 minutes later, Joe rolled out from under the truck, face pale. Henry, your brake line's been cut. I made myself look shocked. What? Professional cut. This is attempted murder. He pulled out his phone. Joe. I grabbed his arm. Document everything, but don't report it. Not yet. Give me 2 days. Henry, someone tried to kill you. I know, and I know who, but if we move now, they'll run. 2 days. Then you can tell everyone. Joe studied my face. You're planning something. Justice, I said. He nodded slowly. 2 days. Be careful. Day 13 evening. I sat in my living room and called Stephanie. She answered on the second ring. Henry, how are you? Not great. My voice shook, didn't have to fake it. I was going through Brandon's things, found something you should see. What is it? Legal stuff about his patents. I don't understand it. Can you come by tomorrow evening, 7? Pause, no? Of course. Is it important? It's about the patents. Maybe you can help me figure it out. I'll be there, 7 p.m. Her voice was warm, concerned. Try to get some sleep, Henry. I will. See you tomorrow. I hung up. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, from rage. That night I didn't sleep. Just lay in bed, thinking about Stephanie walking into my house tomorrow. About Brandon hiding in the garage. About Detective Foster waiting outside. About $42 million and 3 people who thought murder was worth it. At 5 a.m., my phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Today we end this, Dad. See you at 7 p.m. B. I texted back, I'll be ready. Then I got up, made coffee, and waited for evening to come. If you're still here with me, drop a comment, sharing what you think will happen when Stephanie walks into that house on day 14. Will the plan work? Will she suspect something? I really want to know your predictions before we continue. And a quick reminder, this narrative contains fictional elements, crafted for storytelling impact. Some details have been imagined for dramatic effect. If this type of content isn't for you, feel free to pause here. 6:45 p.m. I stood in my living room, checking my watch. Outside, Detective Foster's unmarked car sat 2 houses down. Brandon was in my garage, hidden behind the workbench. At 7 o'clock, headlights swept across my window. The Lexus. I opened the door. Stephanie stepped in first, black dress, concerned expression. Travis followed, hand on her lower back. Henry. She reached for my arm. Thank you for calling. You said you found something. Sit down. I gestured to the couch. They sat close. Too close. Can I get you anything? I asked. We're fine, Travis said. His eyes swept the room. Stephanie leaned forward. You sounded upset on the phone. What did you find? I stayed standing. How long have you two been together? Silence. Heavy. I don't know what you... Stephanie started. How long, Stephanie? She glanced at Travis. Henry, I think grief is making you confused. 8 months, 9. Was it before Brandon died or after? I kept my voice calm, conversational, because Betty mentioned she saw Travis's car here overnight, twice, last week. Travis stiffened. I was checking on her. At 2 a.m. Henry, this is inappropriate, Stephanie said. Her voice had an edge now. I came here because you said you found something of Brandon's. I did. I pulled out my phone. Want to hear it? Her eyes fixed on the phone. Calculating. I pressed play. 10 seconds. Just their voices from the car recording. 42 million total, and his dad. Then Henry has an accident too. I pressed stop. The silence was deafening. Stephanie's face had gone white. Where did you get that? Does it matter? I asked. That's taken out of context. She was standing now. We were talking about a movie about a movie. I tilted my head. That's interesting. Because the recording is dated September 28th. What movie were you discussing? Travis stood. We should go. Why? I asked. I haven't told you what else I found yet. What else? Stephanie's voice was sharp now. Medical records, video footage, text messages. I watched her face. 6 months worth. Maybe you can help me understand them. You're bluffing, Travis said. Am I? I looked at him. Why were you in my garage at 2 a.m, Travis? His jaw tightened. I wasn't. October 24th, 11:42 p.m. You came through the side door. Spent 4 minutes under my truck. Want to tell me what you were doing? Stephanie grabbed Travis's arm. Don't say anything. Why not? I asked. If it was innocent, why can't he explain? Because you're setting us up, Stephanie hissed. You're recording this right now, aren't you? Trying to trap us. Like you trapped Brandon. The words came out quiet. Cold. When you put powder in his coffee every morning for 6 months. Her face twisted. You senile old man. You have no idea. What I'm dealing with, I finished. You're right. I don't know what it's like to murder someone for money. Maybe you can explain it to me. Travis moved toward the door. We're leaving. Are you? I didn't move. Because I'm curious. When you cut my brake lines, was that before or after you tried to push me down the stairs? Stephanie's mask cracked completely. You can't prove any of this. Can't I? The garage door opened. Brandon stepped into the living room. Stephanie's scream was raw. Animal. She stumbled backward. No. Her voice broke. No, you're dead, you're... Hello, Stephanie, Brandon said. His voice was ice. Surprised to see me. Travis was staring, frozen. The crash. The body. They confirmed what I wanted them to confirm. Brandon stepped closer. While you two were planning my father's murder, I was watching. Every phone call, every text, every time you slipped into his house to plant pills, every time Travis climbed under Dad's truck in the middle of the night. You're insane, Stephanie whispered, but her eyes were darting to the door. I have video of you poisoning my coffee, Stephanie. I have your text messages about the insurance money. I have recordings of you and Travis planning both our deaths. Brandon's voice never rose. I have Marcus Webb's signed confession about the conservatorship fraud. I have everything. We'll get lawyers, Stephanie started. You'll get prison. The front door opened. Detective Foster walked in, badge out. Officer Garcia behind her. Stephanie Mitchell, Travis Bennett. Foster's voice was steady. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder of Brandon Mitchell, attempted murder of Henry Cooper, insurance fraud, and obstruction of justice. Stephanie lunged for the door. Garcia blocked her, spun her around, cuffed her in seconds. You have the right to remain silent. This is entrapment, Stephanie screamed. We didn't do anything, we were just talking. You confessed, I said quietly. Just now, on tape. You said I couldn't prove it, which means you knew what it was. Travis wasn't fighting, just stood there as Garcia cuffed him face blank with shock. Foster led Stephanie toward the door. She was still screaming. Henry, you bastard, you set us up, you... The door closed, cut her off mid-sentence. Through the window, I watched the patrol car pull away. The Lexus sat in my driveway, evidence now. The street was full. Betty Anderson on her lawn, hand over her mouth. Joe Crawford in his driveway. Neighbors everywhere. They'd all watched Stephanie Mitchell get arrested. Betty came over, first grabbed my arm. "Henry, oh Henry." "I'm okay, Betty." She looked at Brandon. "You're alive. Thank God." Joe crossed the street, shook Brandon's hand. "Hell of a thing." I stood on my porch, sun beside me, community around me. "It's really over?" I asked Brandon. "It's really over, Dad." For the first time in 2 weeks, I believed it. The phone rang at 8 a.m. day 15. Detective Foster. "Henry, first hearing is at 2 p.m. Hamilton County Courthouse. You and Brandon need to be there." "What kind of hearing?" "Arraignment. Judge will read formal charges, set bail. Stephanie and Travis will be present via video from county jail." Foster paused. "Bring something to write with. This is just the beginning." I hung up and found Brandon in my kitchen making coffee. He looked like he'd actually slept for the first time in weeks. "We have court at 2, I said. He nodded. "Good, let's finish this." The Hamilton County Courthouse sat downtown, gray stone building with columns that made you feel small walking up the steps. Brandon and I arrived at 1:30. Foster met us at the security checkpoint. "Courtroom 3, second floor," she said. "Judge Patricia Thornton presiding. She's fair but no nonsense. Worked homicide cases for 15 years before the bench." The courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined. Wood paneling, Tennessee state seal on the wall, maybe 50 seats for observers. Half of them were full reporters, mostly a few faces I recognized from the neighborhood. We sat behind the prosecutor's table. DA Maria Gonzalez, mid-40s, sharp suit. Sharper eyes, turned and shook our hands. "Mr. Cooper, Mr. Mitchell, good to finally meet you in person. Detective Foster briefed me on everything. Your evidence is airtight. This should be straightforward." At precisely 2 o'clock, a bailiff stood. "All rise. The Honorable Judge Patricia Thornton presiding." Judge Thornton entered. Early 60s, silver hair, pulled back, reading glasses on a chain. She sat, surveyed the courtroom with the kind of look that said she'd seen everything and wasn't impressed by any of it. "Be seated." She opened a file. "Case number 2024-CR04892. The State of Tennessee versus Stephanie Ann Mitchell and Travis Lee Bennett." Still, 2 screens flickered on. Split screen. Stephanie on one side, orange jumpsuit, hair pulled back. No makeup. She looked smaller somehow. Travis on the other, same orange, staring at nothing. "Miss Mitchell, Mr. Bennett, you are appearing via video from Hamilton County Detention Center. Do you understand the charges against you?" Stephanie's lawyer, some kid in a suit that didn't fit right, leaned into her microphone. "Your Honor, my client. I'm asking the defendant, counselor." Thornton's voice cut like a blade. "Yes," Stephanie said, barely audible. "Speak up, please." "Yes, Your Honor." Thornton read from the file. "Stephanie Ann Mitchell, you are charged with conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree of Brandon James Mitchell, conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree of Henry James Cooper, 3 counts of attempted murder in the first degree of Henry James Cooper, insurance fraud in the amount of $7 million, and obstruction of justice." She looked up. "Do you understand these charges?" "Yes." "How do you plead, not guilty, Your Honor?" Thornton turned to the other screen. "Travis Lee Bennett, you are charged with conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree of Brandon James Mitchell, conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree of Henry James Cooper, 3 counts of attempted murder in the first degree of Henry James Cooper, and obstruction of justice. Do you understand these charges?" "Yes, ma'am." "How do you plead, not guilty?" "Very well." Thornton looked at D.A. Gonzalez. Bail recommendation. Gonzalez stood. The state recommends no bail, Your Honor. Both defendants represent extreme flight risk. Ms. Mitchell has discussed fleeing to the Cayman Islands with Mr. Bennett. We have recorded evidence of this. They also pose a continued danger to witnesses, specifically Mr. Henry Cooper and Mr. Brandon Mitchell, both of whom they attempted to murder multiple times. Stephanie's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client is a respected member of the community. Your client is on tape planning 2 murders, Thornton interrupted. Counselor, I've reviewed the evidence filed with this court. Video surveillance, audio recordings, medical records. The state's case is compelling. Bail is denied for both defendants pending trial. She banged her gavel. Next hearing scheduled for November 15th. Discovery deadline December 1st. Trial date to be set. We're adjourned. The screens went black. Stephanie, mid-protest, mouth open, lawyer talking over her. Brandon exhaled beside me. Bail denied. They can't run. They can't do anything, Foster said behind us. They're going to sit in county jail for the next 4 months minimum while we build the prosecution. Outside the courthouse, my phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Cooper. This is Richard Vance with Pinnacle Life Insurance. We need to discuss the $7 million payout to Mrs. Mitchell. What about it? We've opened an investigation into fraud. If your son is alive and the death was staged, that payout was obtained through deception. We'll be filing suit to recover the full amount plus penalties. I wanted to give you advance notice you may be called as a witness. I'll testify, I said. Whatever you need. Thank you, Mr. Cooper. We'll be in touch. I hung up. Shakti Insurance Company, I told Brandon. They want their $7 million back. Good, he said. She shouldn't get a dime. That evening, the news broke about Travis. His parents, Roger and Linda Bennett, people I'd known for 30 years, released a statement. Betty brought me a printed copy from the Chattanooga Times Free Press website. We are horrified and heartbroken by the charges against our son. We raised him to be honest and kind. The man accused of these crimes is not the son we knew. We have no contact with Travis and do not intend to support him in any way. Our prayers are with the Cooper and Mitchell families. Below it, a quote from Roger Bennett. He's not my son anymore. What he did, trying to kill Henry, trying to kill Brandon, that's unforgivable. I hope they lock him up and throw away the key. I read it twice. Thought about Roger teaching Travis to fish, Linda bringing over Christmas cookies every year. 30 years of friendship gone. They disowned him, I said to Brandon. He earned it. Brandon's voice was hard. He tried to kill us both for money. His parents shouldn't have to carry that. Betty squeezed my hand. They're good people, Henry. This isn't their fault. I know. The next morning, day 16. Detective Foster showed up at my door with coffee and a grim expression. We've got a problem, she said. Brandon and I sat at the kitchen table. Foster pulled out her laptop. Remember I said the evidence was airtight? She turned the screen toward us. There's a third player, Marcus Webb, 42 years old. Financial advisor. He's been helping Stephanie hide money and forge documents. She pulled up bank records. Webb owes $180,000 in gambling debts. Stephanie paid him $50,000 to help with conservatorship fraud, forged doctors' signatures, fake cognitive assessments, the works. He was setting up a scheme to declare you mentally incompetent and seize Brandon's patents. Where is he now? Brandon asked. That's the problem. We can't find him. He lawyered up yesterday, then disappeared. Missed a scheduled interview this morning. Flight risk. Probably. But if we don't locate him in the next 48 hours, he walks. We need him to testify against Stephanie and Travis. He's the missing piece that ties the financial conspiracy together. I looked at Brandon. Is there anyone else? Brandon shook his head. Webb's the last one, Dad. After him, it's just trial prep. Foster closed her laptop. We'll find him. I've got officers checking his apartment, his office, known associates. He can't hide forever. And if he runs, I asked, then we prosecute Stephanie and Travis without him. The case is still strong, but Webb's testimony would seal it. She stood. I'll keep you posted. In the meantime, both of you stay vigilant. Webb knows you have evidence against him. Desperate people do desperate things. After she left, I sat at the table staring at my coffee. 3 of them, I said. Stephanie, Travis, and Webb, all willing to kill us for money. Brandon put his hand on my shoulder. But they failed Dad, and now they're going to pay for it. I wanted to believe him, but somewhere out there Marcus Webb was running, and running men were dangerous. 9 a.m. Day 17. Detective Foster knocked on my door folder in hand, and something like satisfaction in her eyes. We found him, she said. Brandon and I followed her into the kitchen. She spread documents across the table. Marcus Webb tried to run, made it as far as his brother's cabin outside Knoxville before we tracked his cell phone. Arrested him at 6 this morning. Foster pulled up a photo on her phone. Middle-aged man, thinning hair, expensive suit rumpled from a night in holding. He lawyered up immediately, but when we showed him the evidence, he folded in under an hour. What evidence? Brandon asked. Foster opened the folder. Bank statements, wire transfers, corporate registrations. $350,000 laundered through fake LLCs over the past 18 months. All traced back to Stephanie's accounts, all processed through Webb's financial advisory firm. I stared at the numbers. How did he think he'd get away with it? He didn't think anyone would look. Foster tapped one document. Say Webb set up shell companies, Summit Holdings, LLC, Riverside Investments, Pinnacle Financial Group, all registered to P.O. boxes. Stephanie would transfer money from her personal accounts to these companies for consulting services. Webb would take his cut, then funnel the rest back to her through cash withdrawals and prepaid cards. Washing the money, Brandon said. Exactly. Made it look legitimate on paper, but we brought in a forensic accountant, Dr. Lisa Morgan, CPA, certified fraud examiner. She tore through Webb's books in 48 hours. Foster pulled out another document. Here's where it gets interesting. Dr. Morgan found fake medical invoices. $45,000 in experimental treatment for Brandon's mystery illness. $23,000 for specialist consultations. All with forged doctor signatures. Webb created these to justify Stephanie's spending when Brandon started questioning where money was going. Brandon's jaw tightened. I asked her about charges on our credit cards. She said I was too sick to remember the appointments. Gaslighting, Foster said. See, Webb gave her the paperwork to back up the lies. Made you think you were losing your memory while she drained accounts. I thought about Stephanie's concerned face, her gentle voice. Brandon's been so sick, Henry. The medical bills are overwhelming. All lies backed by fake invoices from a man I'd never heard of. Where's Webb now? I asked. County jail. Same block as Stephanie and Travis, different cells. Foster smiled grimly. His lawyer called D.A. Gonzalez at 8 this morning. Webb wants a deal. Foster's phone buzzed. She answered, listened, hung up. That was Gonzalez. Webb's signing the plea agreement now. He'll testify against Stephanie and Travis, full cooperation, everything he knows about the financial conspiracy, the conservatorship fraud, all of it. In exchange, prosecution recommends 8 years instead of 25. 8 years. I felt my anger rise. He helped them try to kill us. He helped them steal and forge documents, Foster corrected. But he wasn't party to the murder conspiracy. Legally, that's a different charge. 8 years for financial fraud and obstruction is actually steep. And his testimony locks Stephanie and Travis away for life. Brandon put a hand on my shoulder. It's enough, Dad. Let him talk. Let him bury them. Foster gathered the documents. Gonzalez says the case is airtight now. Webb's testimony connects every financial transaction to Stephanie's motive. The jury will hear how she paid Webb $50,000 to forge conservatorship papers. How she laundered $350,000. How she planned to declare you incompetent to seize Brandon's patents. She looked at Brandon. Speaking of patents, your lawyer filed an emergency injunction this morning. Judge Thornton granted it. All intellectual property rights frozen. Stephanie can't touch them, can't sell them, can't claim them. They're protected. Brandon exhaled. Now $35 million she'll never see. 35 million reasons she'll spend the rest of her life in prison, Foster said. That evening, day 18, I found Brandon in my garage. He'd pulled a tarp off an old workbench I hadn't touched in months, was sorting through tools. What are you doing? I asked. Thought we could work on the Tacoma. He held up a wrench. Clean it up, make it shine. It saved our lives. Seems like it deserves better than sitting in the driveway covered in dust. I grabbed another wrench, joined him at the truck. We worked in comfortable silence for a while, checking fluids, tightening bolts, wiping down the interior. You think they'll take a plea? I asked. Stephanie and Travis. Brandon didn't look up from the carburetor he was cleaning. No, Stephanie's too arrogant. She'll think she can win. She'll hire expensive lawyers, cry on the stand about being a grieving widow, try to convince a jury I'm the villain for faking my death. And Travis, he'll follow her lead. He always has. Brandon set down the carburetor. But it won't work. We have video of her poisoning my coffee. Audio of them planning our murders. Text messages, bank records, Marcus Webb's testimony tying the financial motive together. When that jury sees everything, he looked at me. They won't just convict, they'll bury her. I thought about the trial, about sitting in that courtroom, watching Stephanie try to lie her way out of murder. About 12 strangers deciding whether my son and I deserved justice. How long until trial? I asked. CDA said 4 to 6 months. Discovery period, pretrial motions, jury selection. Brandon wiped his hands on a rag. Spring, probably. March or April. 4 months. 4 months of waiting, of looking over my shoulder, of wondering if Stephanie had any more tricks hidden away. We'll be ready, Brandon said, reading my mind. We have everything we need. Every piece of evidence is documented, verified, backed up. Detective Foster D.A. Gonzalez, even Marcus Webb, now everyone's on our side. And us, I asked. What do we do for 4 months? Brandon looked around the garage. At the Tacoma, at the tools, at the space we'd shared since he was a kid learning to change oil. We live Dad. We work on this truck. We have Sunday dinners. We rebuild what she tried to destroy. He smiled a real smile, the first I'd seen in weeks. And when March comes, we walk into that courtroom, and we watch justice happen. I nodded, picked up a socket wrench, got back to work. Outside, the sun was setting over Chattanooga. Inside, my son was alive, and the people who'd tried to kill us were in cages. For now, that was enough. Maria Gonzalez called me the Monday after Thanksgiving. 6 weeks since the arrests. Her voice carried the kind of controlled urgency I'd come to recognize. Henry, depositions start next week. I need you and Brandon in my office tomorrow morning. We have a lot to cover. I drove to downtown Chattanooga the next day. Brandon was already there, sitting across from Gonzalez in her conference room. Stacks of folders covered the table: evidence logs, witness statements, financial records. Her Robert Marsh filed his defense strategy yesterday, Gonzalez said. He's claiming Stephanie is a victim of psychological manipulation by Brandon. Brandon's expression hardened. That's absurd. Well, of course it is, but it's all he's got. She opened a folder. He can't challenge the recordings. He can't explain away the arsenic or the brake lines. So he's trying to flip the narrative, make Brandon the villain who staged everything for revenge. Will a jury believe that? I asked. Not if we're prepared, which is why these depositions matter. Marsh is going to come at both of you hard. He'll try to rattle you, make you seem unreliable or vindictive. She looked at me. Henry, he's going to question your memory, your mental state. He'll suggest grief made you imagine things. Let him try. Brandon, he'll paint you as a controlling husband who faked his death to destroy your wife. He'll ask why you didn't go to the police immediately, why you hid for weeks, why you involved your father instead of proper authorities. Brandon nodded slowly. I have answers for all of that. Good, because you'll need them. My deposition was scheduled for the following Monday. I sat in a small conference room with Gonzalez on my left, Robert Marsh across from me, and a court reporter at the end of the table. Marsh was mid-50s, silver hair, expensive suit, the kind of lawyer who made his living defending people who could afford the best. He started with the basics: my background, my relationship with Brandon, Catherine's death. Then he shifted gears. Mr. Cooper, you're 65 years old, correct? Yes. And you take medication for a heart condition, beta blockers? Yes. Have you experienced any memory issues in recent years? Gonzalez cut in. Relevance. Marsh smiled. Mr. Cooper's testimony hinges on his recollection of events. I'm establishing his cognitive baseline. I remember everything just fine, I said evenly. Do you? Marsh leaned forward. You claim you heard Brandon's voice on a GPS device, a device that, according to experts, doesn't have audio recording capability. Isn't it possible that grief, the trauma of losing your son, caused you to hear something that wasn't there? I held his gaze. I heard my son's voice telling me where to find him. And I found him, alive, in a cabin in the Cohuta wilderness. That's not grief. That's fact. But you can't produce this alleged GPS recording, can you? Brandon has it. It's in evidence. Marsh flipped through his notes. Yes, Detective Foster logged a small recording device, but there's no proof it was embedded in the vehicle's GPS system. It could have been planted anywhere, by anyone. By Brandon, you mean? I'm simply establishing that your testimony relies on an unverified claim about a voice recording. The recording exists. Brandon's voice is on it. That's not a claim. It's evidence. Marsh shifted again. Let's talk about the will. You inherited a 20-year-old truck. That must have been disappointing. I didn't care about the money. Really, your son, adopted son, correct, left you virtually nothing while his wife received millions. That didn't make you angry? No, not even a little resentful. Brandon explained everything. The will was part of the plan. Ah, yes, the plan. Marsh's tone was mocking. The elaborate conspiracy theory where your daughter-in-law and her lover tried to kill you both. Quite a story. Gonzalez stood. If you're going to editorialize, counselor, we're done here. Marsh held up his hands. Withdrawn. Mr. Cooper, one last question. If Stephanie Mitchell was really trying to kill you, why didn't you go to the police before Brandon's supposed death? Because I didn't know. Not until Brandon showed me the evidence. How convenient. Brandon's deposition was worse. Marsh attacked from every angle. Why didn't Brandon go to the police when he first suspected Stephanie? Why did he install hidden cameras instead of confronting her? Why fake his death instead of filing for divorce? Because they were trying to kill me, Brandon said. If I'd confronted them, I'd be dead. If I'd gone to the police without proof, they would have destroyed the evidence and come after me harder. So you took the law into your own hands. I gathered evidence. Then I worked with law enforcement to stop them. After staging an elaborate fake death, after letting your father believe you were gone, after manipulating events to frame your wife. I didn't frame anyone. I documented their crimes. Did you? Marsh pulled out a document. Let's talk about the arsenic. You claim Stephanie poisoned you for 6 months, yet you never sought medical attention until July. I didn't know what was happening until I saw the pattern. Or perhaps you poisoned yourself to create evidence. Brandon's voice went cold. I have medical records. Blood tests showing arsenic levels 26 times normal. Hair samples proving long-term exposure. Video of Stephanie putting powder in my coffee. Are you suggesting I poisoned myself, recorded fake videos, and faked lab results? I'm suggesting this entire scenario is too convenient. A wronged husband stages his death, plants evidence, and destroys his wife's life. The evidence isn't planted. It's real. And Stephanie destroyed her own life when she decided to commit murder. While Brandon and I dealt with depositions, Gonzalez prepared our other witnesses. Betty Anderson would testify about the stairs incident. She'd seen Stephanie push me, seen me nearly fall. Joe Crawford had the brake line evidence, photos, repair records, expert analysis, showing deliberate sabotage. The church community rallied around us. Riverside Baptist held a fundraiser to help with legal expenses. $12,000 raised in one evening. Pastor Reynolds gave a sermon about standing with the innocent against false accusations. The local paper ran a feature story, Community Supports Father and Son in Murder-for-Hire Case. The outpouring humbled me. These were people who'd known Brandon his whole life, who'd watched him grow up, seen him build his career, knew his character. They didn't believe Marsh's story about manipulation and revenge. They believed the truth. In mid-December, Marsh filed a motion to subpoena my complete medical records. He's fishing, Gonzalez explained. Looking for anything he can use to attack your credibility. Depression, anxiety, anything that suggests diminished capacity. He won't find it. I know, but I'm filing a motion to limit the scope. He gets records relevant to cognitive function only, nothing else. Judge Thornton granted the motion. Marsh received 3 pages of doctor's notes from my annual physical. No dementia, no cognitive impairment, no memory issues. The fishing expedition failed. By mid-December, the case was airtight. Marcus Webb's plea deal was finalized. He'd testify about the money laundering, the conservatorship fraud, the entire financial conspiracy. Betty Anderson and Joe Crawford had given detailed depositions about the attempts on my life. The recordings were authenticated and ready for trial. Robert Marsh kept fighting. He filed motions to suppress evidence, to exclude witnesses, to delay the trial. Judge Thornton denied every single one. On December 20th, Gonzalez called with the final update. Trial date is set, she said. March 15th. Jury selection starts March 10th. I did the math. 3 months away. That enough time, I asked. More than enough. We'll spend January and February on final prep. Mock trials. Witness rehearsals. Making sure every detail is perfect. She paused. Marsh will keep looking for angles. He's desperate. But Henry, we have him. The evidence is overwhelming. Brandon and I spent Christmas quietly. Just the two of us like it used to be when Catherine was alive. We didn't talk much about the trial. We were both exhausted from months of depositions and legal maneuvering. On New Year's Eve, Brandon raised his glass. "To Mom," he said, "and to finishing this." "To finishing this," I echoed. 3 months until trial. 3 months until Stephanie and Travis would face a jury and answer for everything they'd done. We were ready. Maria Gonzalez called me on a Tuesday morning in early January. "Henry, we need to talk. Defense just filed their witness list." I drove to her office in downtown Chattanooga. Brandon met me there. The prosecutor's face was grim as she slid the document across her desk. I scanned the names. Most were predictable character witnesses for Stephanie experts hired to muddy the waters. Then I saw it. Karen Bishop. My blood ran cold. "Who is she?" Brandon asked. Gonzalez pulled up a file. "Stephanie's cousin, 32 years old, lives in Knoxville. According to her sworn statement, Brandon visited her last November. She claims he confessed to planning a fake death to frame Stephanie." Brandon's jaw tightened. "That's impossible." "I know," Gonzalez said, "but Robert Marsh is betting the jury won't." The defense strategy was clear. They couldn't refute the evidence, the recordings, the arsenic, the brake lines, so they were attacking the narrative itself. If they could convince even one juror that Brandon staged everything as revenge against his wife, the whole case collapsed. "What did she say exactly?" I asked. Gonzalez read from the deposition transcript. "Brandon came to my apartment on November 18th. He seemed anxious. He told me Stephanie was trying to divorce him and take everything. He said he had a plan to disappear and make it look like she killed him. He wanted to destroy her life the way she destroyed his." Brandon shook his head. "I've never been to her apartment. I've met Karen maybe 3 times in my life, all at family events." "Can you prove where you were November 18th? Gonzalez asked. Brandon pulled out his phone. Within 5 minutes, he had the receipts. November 15th through 17th, a software engineering conference in Atlanta. Hotel reservation at the Marriott Marquis. Dinner receipts. A photo with colleagues at the closing banquet on the 17th. November 18th, I was back home, Brandon said. I have credit card charges from a grocery store in Hickson at 2 p.m. and a gas station at 4:30. Gonzalez smiled. That'll work. Knoxville is 2 hours from Hickson. You couldn't have been in both places. So why is she lying? I asked. That's what Detective Foster is finding out. 2 days later, Foster called with an update. I subpoenaed Karen Bishop's phone records, she said. Also pulled the jail call logs for Stephanie Mitchell. Brandon and I sat in my living room, the detective on speakerphone. Stephanie's made 47 calls since her arrest, Foster continued. Most to her lawyer, but 14 calls went to one number, Karen Bishop's cell, all between January 5th and 12th. Before Karen gave her statement, Brandon said. Exactly. I got a warrant for the recordings. You need to hear this. Foster played the first call. Stephanie's voice came through tight with controlled panic. Karen, I need you to do something for me. What is it? Karen sounded uncertain. Robert says we need someone who can testify that Brandon planned this, that he wanted revenge. Steph, I can't lie in court. It's not lying. Think about it. Brandon faked his death. He hid evidence for months. He's trying to destroy my life. All you're doing is telling the jury what kind of person he is. But I don't know anything about... Listen to me. Stephanie's voice hardened. I'm facing life in prison. Life, Karen. for something I didn't do. I need you." The recording ended. Foster played the next one. "Okay, I've been thinking," Karen said. "What exactly do you need me to say?" Stephanie's relief was audible. "Just that Brandon came to see you in November, that he seemed angry about the marriage, that he said he had a plan." "But he didn't come see me in November." "Karen, does it really matter? The point is, he's capable of this. You're helping the jury see the truth." Over the next 6 calls, Stephanie coached Karen through every detail. The date, the time, what Brandon supposedly said, how he looked. Karen's initial resistance faded, replaced by practiced lines. The final recording was from January 11th. "I gave my statement today," Karen said. And Robert seemed pleased. He said it could change everything. "Good. Thank you, Karen. I won't forget this." Foster came back on the line. "I arrested Karen Bishop this morning. Perjury and obstruction of justice. Her bail's set at $25,000. The media exploded. Local news led with the story, "Cousin arrested in murder-for-hire case, accused of perjury to help defendant." The Chattanooga Times Free Press ran a front-page feature. Social media lit up with outrage. Public opinion already strongly against Stephanie turned venomous. Even people who'd initially sympathized, who'd wondered if maybe Brandon had manipulated the situation, now saw the depths of Stephanie's deception. Robert Marsh tried damage control. He released a statement claiming Karen acted independently, that the defense had no knowledge of any coaching. Nobody believed him. Gonzalez called me that evening. "This changes everything. The jury will see Stephanie's willing to suborn perjury to save herself. It destroys any sympathy Marsh was trying to build." "What about Karen?" I asked. "She'll likely plead out, serve a year, maybe 18 months. But her testimony is worthless now. Marsh can't put her on the stand." On a cold Saturday in late February, Brandon and I drove to the cemetery. Catherine's grave sat beneath an oak tree on a hillside overlooking the valley. The headstone was simple granite, the inscription just her name and dates. She'd been 58 when the cancer took her. 7 years felt like yesterday. I knelt and brushed away the dead leaves. "Hey, Catherine," I said quietly. "I brought our boy." Brandon stood beside me, hands in his pockets. We'd been so busy with depositions and evidence and legal strategy that we hadn't had time to just feel, to acknowledge what we'd lost and what we'd saved. "I wish you could have seen him come back," I said. "You would have been so proud. He saved both of us." Brandon's voice was thick. "I'm sorry I put you through this, Dad. I should have found another way." "No." I stood and gripped his shoulder. "You did exactly what you had to do, and your mother would have understood that." We stood in silence for a long moment. The wind moved through the bare branches. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell rang. "Justice is coming," I told Catherine's grave, "for what they tried to do to our son, for what they tried to do to me. 2 weeks, and it all ends." Brandon looked at me. "You think we'll win?" I thought about everything we'd been through. The recordings, the evidence, the lies exposed. Karen Bishop's arrest. Marcus Webb's confession. The community standing with us. "Yeah," I said. "I do." We left flowers on the grave and drove home as the sun set over the Tennessee hills. The trial was 13 days away. After everything Stephanie and Travis had done, the poison, the attempts on my life, the conspiracy to steal everything Brandon had built, they would finally face a jury. And when that jury heard the truth, there would be no more running, no more lies, no more manipulation, just justice. The Hamilton County Courthouse stood on Georgia Avenue, 4 stories of limestone and glass. I climbed the steps at 8:45, Brandon beside me, Maria Gonzalez ahead. Television cameras lined the plaza. Inside, supporters from Riverside Baptist waited: Betty Anderson, Joe Crawford, Pastor Reynolds. Courtroom 3C was oak-paneled and silent. Stephanie sat at the defense table in a navy suit, expression neutral. Travis beside her, thinner than I remembered. Robert Marsh shuffled papers with practiced confidence. At 9 o'clock, Judge Patricia Thornton entered. "We're here for State of Tennessee versus Stephanie Mitchell and Travis Bennett. Charges include conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, insurance fraud, and obstruction of justice." She looked at the jury. "This trial will take approximately 2 weeks. The jury was 12 working people from Hamilton County: a construction foreman, a grocery manager, a retired teacher, a hospital nurse. People who understood honest work. Ms. Gonzalez, opening statement. Maria Gonzalez approached the jury without notes. "Over the next 2 weeks, you'll hear a story about greed, about 2 people who decided $42 million was worth more than a human life. $7 million in life insurance. $35 million in software patents. All theirs if Brandon Mitchell died." She held up a photograph of the Tacoma. But Brandon's father inherited only this, a beat-up truck with 155,000 miles. Stephanie got millions. Henry Cooper got a Toyota, except hidden inside that truck was a GPS device with a message: "Dad, I need you. Come find me." Henry drove 90 miles into the Cohutta wilderness and found his son alive. Her voice hardened. Brandon staged his death because Stephanie and Travis were trying to kill him. 6 months of arsenic poisoning, sabotaged brakes. When that failed, they targeted Henry Stair's medication brake lines. 3 attempts, all documented, all on video. She faced the jury squarely. "The evidence will show beyond reasonable doubt that these defendants conspired to commit murder for financial gain. I will ask you to hold them accountable." Robert Marsh rose for the defense. "What you're about to witness is a revenge plot. Brandon Mitchell faked his death to destroy his wife. He planted evidence. He manipulated his elderly father, who had access to those blood samples, Brandon, who installed the cameras, Brandon, who's an engineer who knows how to cut brake lines, Brandon." Marsh shook his head. "And this man faked his death, let his father grieve, hid in the woods for weeks. And now he wants you to believe he's the victim." Gonzalez called her first witness. "The state calls Henry Cooper." I walked to the witness stand. The bailiff held out a Bible. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" "I do." Gonzalez approached. "Mr. Cooper, your relationship to Brandon Mitchell." "He's my son. I adopted him when he was 6. His biological parents died in a car accident. My wife Catherine and I raised him. She passed 7 years ago from cancer." "What happened October 14th, 2024? "I attended Brandon's funeral. The will was read. Stephanie inherited $7 million in life insurance and $35 million in patents. I got Brandon's truck." "How did that make you feel?" "Confused. Hurt. Brandon and I were close." "What happened next?" 3 days later, I found a GPS device in the truck. It was blinking. When I activated it, I heard Brandon's voice. Gonzalez nodded to the bailiff. Audio equipment was set up. "I'd like to play Exhibit 1. The courtroom went silent. Brandon's voice filled the room. "Dad, if you're hearing this, I need you. Come find me. These coordinates will take you to where I am. I'm in danger. Please come alone. I'll explain everything when you get here. I love you, Dad. Two jurors wiped their eyes. What did you do? Gonzalez asked. Followed the coordinates. 90 miles south to Cahuta Wilderness. Found a cabin. Brandon was there. Alive. Why had he faked his death? Stephanie and Travis were trying to kill him. He showed me videos, recordings, medical records, everything. Gonzalez walked me through the arsenic, poisoning the recorded conversations, the 3 attempts on my life. I kept my answers factual. Marsh stood for cross-examination. Mr. Cooper, you're 65 and take heart medication, correct? Beta blockers, yes. Any memory problems, confusion? No. But you claim you heard your dead son's voice from a GPS device that doesn't have recording capability. It was a separate recorder Brandon hid inside the dash. How convenient. Isn't it possible grief caused you to imagine this voice, that you wanted to believe Brandon was alive? No. The recording exists. It's right there. I pointed to the evidence table. A recording made at any time by anyone. I leaned forward. I'm a mechanic, Mr. Marsh. 40 years. I know the difference between a real device and imagination. I found that recorder. I followed those coordinates. I found my son. Marsh tried more angles, whether Brandon planted evidence, whether I was angry about the will, whether I fabricated details. I answered with facts each time. Finally, Marsh sat down. Gonzalez stood. Your Honor, I'd like to enter Exhibits 1 through 15, the GPS device, cabin photographs, hidden camera videos showing Stephanie poisoning Brandon's coffee and Travis cutting brake lines, medical records showing arsenic levels 26 times normal. Any objection? Judge Thornton asked Marsh. No, Your Honor. Exhibits admitted. The bailiff placed each item on the evidence table. The GPS device, blood test results, photos of the cabin, USB drives with surveillance footage, physical proof, undeniable. Judge Thornton checked her watch. Lunch recess, court resumes at 1:30. As the jury filed out, I caught Stephanie's eye. She looked away, but not before I saw the fear. The evidence was real. The jury knew it. This afternoon, Brandon would take the stand and tell them everything. At 1:30, Judge Thornton called court back into session. I sat in the front row, hands gripped together. Ms. Gonzalez, call your next witness. The state calls Brandon Mitchell. Brandon walked to the witness stand in a gray suit. As he passed the defense table, Stephanie's expression tightened. The bailiff administered the oath. Gonzalez approached. Mr. Mitchell, your profession. Software engineer. I develop automation systems for manufacturing plants. I hold 17 patents in industrial robotics. What are those patents worth? Approximately $35 million. A juror in the back row raised his eyebrows. You're married to Stephanie Mitchell? Yes, 8 years. When did you first suspect your wife was trying to harm you? February last year. I started feeling sick constantly, exhausted, hair falling out. By April, I could barely function. My doctor ran basic tests but found nothing wrong. In July, I requested a heavy metals screening. What did it show? Arsenic, 0.8 milligrams per liter. Normal is 0.03. I had 26 times the safe level. Gonzalez displayed the medical report. The numbers were stark. What did you do? Started documenting everything. Installed hidden cameras, kitchen, bedroom, garage. Reviewed months of home security footage. What did you find? Brandon's jaw tightened. My wife poisoning me. Every morning for 6 months. She'd wait until I was in the shower, then add white powder to my coffee. 47 separate incidents on video. Your Honor, Exhibit 16. The lights dimmed. The screen showed our kitchen. February 14th, 7:18 a.m. Stephanie in a bathrobe moving quickly. She pulled a Ziploc bag from her purse, glanced toward the hallway, tapped white powder into Brandon's coffee mug, stirred it, replaced the bag, and left. 40 seconds. Clinical. Deliberate. The courtroom was silent. Gonzalez played 3 more clips. March 9th, April 22nd, June 3rd. Same routine. Same cold efficiency. One juror covered her mouth. Did you confront her? No. I was terrified. If she knew I had evidence, I thought she'd escalate. Kill me faster. What else did you discover? That she wasn't working alone. Another video appeared. October 12th, 1:53 a.m. Our garage. Travis Bennett entering with bolt cutters. He knelt beside the Tacoma and cut the brake line. Clean cut. Professional. Then left. Travis's face was clear under the garage light. 3 days before your supposed death, Gonzalez said. Yes, they were accelerating the timeline. Why didn't you go to the police? I tried. Called the non-emergency line. They said to file a report and get a restraining order, but that wouldn't stop her. I needed ironclad proof, so I faked my death with help from Jake Morrison, a fire department friend. Staged a car crash with a mannequin containing my DNA, made it look like the truck burned, then went to a cabin in Cahuta Wilderness. Why involve your father? Brandon's voice broke slightly. Because once I disappeared, they'd come after him next. Dad was the only person standing between them and my estate. I knew they'd try to kill him. I had to warn him, protect him, document their attempts, so I hid a GPS recorder in the Tacoma and left it to him. What happened after your death was announced. Exactly what I predicted. 3 attempts on his life. Stairs. Poisoned medication. Cut brake lines. I had surveillance on his house. When they failed, they moved to Plan B, declaring Dad mentally incompetent to take conservatorship of my patents. Gonzalez displayed forged medical assessments and conservatorship petitions. How can the jury be certain you didn't fabricate this evidence? I can't fake arsenic in my blood. I can't fake time-stamped security footage from cameras installed months before. I can't fake Marcus Webb's signed confession. The evidence exists independent of me. No further questions. Robert Marsh stood for cross-examination. Mr. Mitchell, you're an engineer. You understand surveillance systems, camera placement. Yes. You installed those cameras yourself without your wife's knowledge. Yes. Tennessee is one-party consent. I consented to recording in my own home. You created evidence in secret, faked your death, manipulated your father, and expect this jury to believe you're the victim. Brandon stayed level. I expect the jury to look at medical records, hair samples showing long-term arsenic exposure, blood tests, video with metadata, Travis's face on camera cutting brake lines, Stephanie's jail calls coaching perjury. None of that is manipulation, it's documentation. You claim your wife tried to kill you, but you're alive. Where's the attempted murder? I survived because I discovered the plot and went into hiding. If I'd stayed, I'd be dead. Or maybe you poisoned yourself to create evidence. Why would I poison myself with arsenic? 6 months of vomiting, hair loss, organ damage. Look at the medical records. Those injuries are real. Marsh held up a document. You filed for divorce last year. March 2023. Yes, I withdrew it 2 weeks later. I thought we could work it out. Or you wanted to build a case against her. I loved her. Discovering she was poisoning me destroyed that. But I didn't create this situation. She did. The evidence proves it. Marsh tried more angles, questioning mental state, suggesting paranoia, implying fabrication. Brandon answered calmly, referring to evidence each time. Finally, Marsh sat down. Judge Thornton checked the clock. We'll adjourn. Court resumes tomorrow at 9 a.m. The jury filed out. Brandon stepped down. I met him at the gate. "Oh, you did good," I said quietly. "Tomorrow Foster testifies, and Webb. It's almost over." As we left, I glanced back. Stephanie stood at the defense table watching us, her expression pure hatred, not grief or fear, just rage that her plan had failed. Let her hate us. The jury had seen the truth. Tomorrow they'd hear even more. At 9 o'clock on March 16th. Detective Linda Foster took the witness stand carrying 3 thick folders. She placed them on the rail and looked at the jury. And Detective Foster Gonzalez began, "What are those files?" Evidence related to 3 separate murder attempts against Henry Cooper. The courtroom tensed. "Can you walk the jury through each attempt?" Foster opened the first folder. October 17th, 2024. Mr. Cooper was descending his front steps. The defendant, Stephanie Mitchell, was behind him. According to witness testimony, she placed both hands on his back and pushed. His neighbor Betty Anderson caught him before he fell onto concrete steps. Your Honor, the state calls Betty Anderson. Betty took the stand, hands folded. 73, retired schoolteacher, sharp as ever. Mrs. Anderson, you witnessed this incident? Yes, I was checking my mailbox. I saw Henry on his porch talking to Stephanie. She was behind him at the top of the steps. He turned to walk down and she pushed him, both hands flat on his back. He pitched forward. I ran over and grabbed his arm just as he was about to fall. How certain are you? She pushed him. Completely certain. She wasn't helping him. She wasn't steadying him. She pushed him hard. If I hadn't been there, he would have hit concrete head first. Marsh stood. Objection. Speculation. She's describing what she witnessed, Gonzalez said. Overruled. Continue. What did Stephanie say afterward? She said, "Oh my God, thank you. He almost fell." But her face, she wasn't relieved. She was angry that I'd stopped it. Marsh's cross-examination went nowhere. Betty's testimony was unshakable. Foster resumed the stand. Detective, what was the second attempt? October 22nd. Someone replaced Mr. Cooper's heart medication metoprolol, a beta blocker, with Ambien, a powerful sedative. 20 milligrams. If Mr. Cooper had taken Ambien with his beta blocker, the combination would have caused severe respiratory depression, potentially fatal. How was this discovered? Mr. Cooper noticed the pills looked different. His pharmacist confirmed they weren't metoprolol. The state crime lab identified them as Ambien 10 pills, 20 milligrams each. Who had access to his medication? Stephanie Mitchell visited his home October 21st. Security footage shows her entering the bathroom where he keeps medication. She was alone for 4 minutes. Gonzalez displayed the footage. Stephanie entering Henry's bathroom, closing the door. Emerging minutes later, purse held close. The third attempt. October 24th. Someone cut the brake line on Mr. Cooper's Tacoma. Clean, professional cut. Deliberately severed the hydraulic line so brakes would fail gradually during use. Your Honor, the state calls Joe Crawford. Joe took the stand work shirt with his garage logo hands rough from decades of mechanic work. Mr. Crawford, you examined Mr. Cooper's vehicle. Yes, ma'am. October 26th. Henry brought the Tacoma in for an oil change. When I put it on the lift, I saw the brake line was cut. Clean slice right through the hydraulic feed. What would have happened if he'd driven it? First few pumps would have worked, but once the fluid drained, he'd have had nothing. If he was on the highway doing 65-70 miles an hour and tried to brake, Joe shook his head. He'd be dead. Could this be normal wear? Absolutely not. I've been a mechanic 38 years. Brake lines corrode leak crack. They don't get cut clean through unless someone does it deliberately. Marsh tried to suggest bias. Joe held firm. I'd want to tell the truth. Someone cut that brake line to kill him. Foster returned to the stand. Detective, do you have evidence connecting these attempts to the defendants? Yes. Security footage from Mr. Cooper's home shows Travis Bennett entering the garage at 2:13 a.m. October 24th, carrying tools. He's near the Tacoma for 11 minutes. The brake line was intact the evening before, cut by morning. Gonzalez played the video. Travis entering through the side door, kneeling beside the Tacoma, working underneath, standing, leaving, clear, undeniable. We also have this. Audio played. Stephanie's voice recorded September 28th. Can't keep waiting. We need to move faster. Travis, the old man's the problem. Once Brandon's gone, Henry inherits everything through the conservatorship clause. Stephanie. So we take care of Henry too. Accident, heart attack. He's 65, takes medication. No one would question it. Travis, and if they do, Stephanie, they won't. We'll have 42 million by then. We'll be gone. The jury sat frozen. Gonzalez let the silence sit. Detective Foster, in your professional opinion, were these accidents? No. They were coordinated murder attempts designed to eliminate Henry Cooper after eliminating his son. Marsh's cross-examination was brief and ineffective. He couldn't explain the cut brake line, the replaced pills, or the audio recording. Your Honor, the state calls Marcus Webb. Chirtaten Webb shuffled to the stand, thinner than I remembered, cheap suit replacing prison jumpsuit. He'd aged a decade in 4 months. Mr. Webb, what was your role in this conspiracy? I was Stephanie's financial advisor. She asked me to help hide money and prepare conservatorship documents for Henry Cooper. Explain. Stephanie planned to have Henry declared mentally incompetent. I drafted conservatorship petitions with forged doctor signatures. If successful, she'd control Henry's assets, including Brandon's patents, once they passed to him through the will. She paid me $50,000. You also laundered money. Yes, $350,000 through shell companies. Summit Holdings, Riverside Investments, Pinnacle Financial Group. All fake, all routing money into accounts Stephanie and Travis could access offshore. Why did you agree? Webb's voice was barely audible. I owed money, gambling debts. Stephanie offered to clear it if I helped. I knew it was wrong. I did it anyway. You've pled guilty to conspiracy and money laundering. Your sentence: 8 years federal prison. Why testify today? Because I'm guilty. But I didn't know about the murder plots. I thought it was just financial fraud. When I found out they'd tried to kill Brandon and Henry, I told Detective Foster everything. Marsh had nothing. Webb's testimony was devastating. The state rests, Gonzalez said. Judge Thornton looked at the clock. 11:45. We'll break for lunch. Closing arguments at 1 p.m. The jury filed out. I sat motionless, overwhelmed. 3 attempts on my life laid out methodically. Audio of Stephanie planning my death. Webb's confession about conservatorship fraud. Brandon touched my shoulder. You okay? Yeah, just hearing it all laid out like that. They tried to kill you 3 times, Dad, and almost succeeded. I looked across the courtroom. Stephanie sat rigid, staring at the table. Travis whispered urgently to Marsh. They'd heard the evidence. They knew it was over. This afternoon, closing arguments. Then the jury would deliberate. Justice was finally within reach. If you've made it this far, please leave a comment telling me what you'd do if you were on that jury after hearing all this evidence. Would the recordings and witness testimony be enough for you? I'm genuinely curious about your take. Just a note, while this story explores real human themes like betrayal and justice, certain narrative elements have been dramatized for educational and entertainment purposes. If you'd prefer not to continue, that's completely understandable. At 2 o'clock, the courtroom was packed. Every seat filled. Judge Thornton gavelled for order. Mr. Marsh, closing argument for the defense. Robert Marsh stood and approached the jury, voice measured. Ladies and gentlemen, what you've heard is a tragic story. A marriage that fell apart. Mistakes made in anger and desperation. But mistakes are not murder. He gestured toward Stephanie. Stephanie Mitchell is not a killer. She's a woman trapped in a failing marriage who made poor choices. Yes, she had an affair. Yes, she argued about money. But that doesn't make you a murderer. Marsh picked up a document. The prosecution wants you to believe Stephanie poisoned her husband for 6 months. But where's the proof she bought arsenic? Where's the receipt? They have videos showing powder going into coffee, but they never tested that powder. For all we know, it was sugar. A juror frowned. And these so-called murder attempts against Henry Cooper, an elderly man stumbles on stairs, his neighbor interprets it as a push. Pills get mixed up, accidents happen. A brake line gets cut, but who's to say Brandon didn't cut it himself to frame his wife? Marsh's voice grew stronger. Brandon Mitchell is a software engineer, an expert in technology. He installed cameras without his wife's knowledge. He faked his own death. He manipulated his father. And now he wants you to convict his wife based on evidence he created and controlled. He faced the jury squarely. The prosecution hasn't proven murder. They've proven a bitter divorce turned into revenge. Don't let Brandon Mitchell use this courtroom to destroy his wife. Find Stephanie Mitchell not guilty. Marsh sat down. Judge Thornton nodded. Ms. Gonzalez. Maria Gonzalez stood. She remained at her table and let the silence sit. Then she spoke. $42 million. She let the number hang. That's what this case is about. Not a failing marriage, not mistakes. $42 million. $7 million in life insurance. $35 million in patents. Money that Stephanie Mitchell and Travis Bennett wanted badly enough to kill for. Gonzalez walked along the jury box. Mr. Marsh wants you to believe arsenic poisoning was sugar in coffee. That 3 attempts on Henry Cooper's life were accidents. That recorded conversations planning murder were just venting frustration. She stopped. Let's talk about evidence. Medical records showing arsenic levels 26 times normal in Brandon Mitchell's blood. Not sugar. Arsenic. A poison causing organ failure and death. Hair samples proving 6 months of exposure. You can't fake that. Gonzalez pointed to the evidence table. Video footage with timestamps showing Stephanie Mitchell adding white powder to her husband's coffee 47 separate times. Not once. 47 times over 6 months. That's not an accident. That's systematic poisoning. She picked up a photograph. Betty Anderson watched Stephanie push Henry Cooper toward concrete steps. Joe Crawford examined brake lines cut with professional precision. Detective Foster documented pills replaced with fatal combinations. These aren't misunderstandings. These are murder attempts. Her voice hardened. And the recording. September 28th. Stephanie and Travis discussing how to kill Henry Cooper. We take care of Henry too. Accident, heart attack, no one would question it. Those are Stephanie's words, her voice, her plan. Gonzalez picked up another photograph. The old Tacoma. Brandon Mitchell left his father this truck. Stephanie called it trash. She got millions. Henry got a vehicle she thought worthless. But that truck saved 2 lives. Hidden inside was a message that exposed 6 months of poisoning, 3 murder attempts, and a conspiracy to steal $42 million. She faced the jury directly. Mr. Marsh says mistakes aren't murder. He's right. But this wasn't a mistake. This was calculated, deliberate, systematic, attempted murder driven by pure greed. Stephanie Mitchell and Travis Bennett tried to kill Brandon Mitchell. When that failed, they tried to kill Henry Cooper 3 separate times for $42 million. Gonzalez's voice dropped. The defense has no explanation for the arsenic, no explanation for the cut brake lines, no explanation for the pills, no explanation for the recorded conversation planning Henry's death. Because there is no innocent explanation. There's only the truth: these defendants are guilty. She looked at each juror. The evidence is overwhelming. The facts are undeniable. I ask you to hold them accountable. Find them guilty on all counts. Gonzalez sat down. Judge Thornton addressed the jury. You've heard all evidence and arguments. You'll now deliberate. The verdict must be unanimous. At 3:15, the jury filed out. Brandon and I sat in the hallway. Gonzalez reviewed notes. Reporters hovered nearby. How long? Brandon asked. Could be hours. Could be days. It was 4 hours. At 6:52 p.m. the bailiff emerged. We have a verdict. The courtroom filled quickly. Judge Thornton took the bench. The jury filed in. Has the jury reached a verdict? The foreman stood, a construction worker, middle-aged. We have, Your Honor. What say you? In the matter of State versus Stephanie Mitchell, on the charge of conspiracy to commit murder, we find the defendant guilty. Stephanie's face went white. On the charge of attempted murder of Brandon Mitchell, guilty. On the charge of attempted murder of Henry Cooper, guilty. On the charges of insurance fraud and obstruction of justice, guilty. The foreman turned to the second page. In the matter of State versus Travis Bennett, on all charges, we find the defendant guilty. The courtroom erupted. Judge Thornton gavelled for order. Stephanie sat frozen. Travis dropped his head into his hands. Marsh whispered urgently, but they didn't respond. Judge Thornton addressed them. Stephanie Mitchell, Travis Bennett, you have been found guilty on all counts. I've presided over this bench for 40 years. Rarely have I seen such calculated, cold-blooded malice. You didn't just try to kill one man. You tried to kill 2, a father and son, for money. Her voice was ice. Sentencing is set for March 30th. Until then, you remain in custody without bail. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down. Brandon and I stood slowly. Behind us, Betty Anderson was crying. Joe Crawford clapped my shoulder. Pastor Reynolds said a quiet prayer. I looked across the courtroom. Stephanie was being led away in handcuffs, face a mask of rage and disbelief. Travis followed, head down, defeated. It's over, Brandon said quietly. Yeah, I said. It's over. Justice had finally been served. March 30th, 2025. Brandon and I climbed the courthouse steps one final time. The courtroom was less crowded than during the trial. Betty Anderson, Joe Crawford, Pastor Reynolds, Detective Foster, Maria Gonzalez at the prosecution table. Stephanie and Travis sat at the defense table in orange jumpsuits, hands shackled. Judge Thornton entered at precisely 10. "We're here for sentencing. Before I impose sentence, I'll hear victim impact statements. Mr. Cooper." I stood, hands shaking as I held the paper I'd written. I walked to the podium. "Your Honor, I'm Henry Cooper, 65 years old. I'm a mechanic. I raised Brandon after his biological parents died. My wife Catherine and I gave him everything, not money, but love, stability, family." I looked at Stephanie. She stared at the table. Stephanie Mitchell didn't just try to kill my son. She didn't just try to kill me. She killed trust. Trust in family. Trust that people you love won't poison your coffee or push you downstairs for money. I welcomed her into our family. After Catherine died, Stephanie was the daughter I never had. She repaid that by trying to murder both of us for $42 million. My voice broke. She took 8 months of my life. 8 months thinking my son was dead. 8 months of grief so deep I didn't think I'd survive. And it was all a lie to steal everything Brandon built. I don't want revenge. I want justice. I want her to know she destroyed everything for money she'll never spend. I sat down. Brandon squeezed my shoulder. "Mr. Mitchell." Brandon stood and approached the podium without notes. "Your Honor, I married Stephanie 8 years ago. I thought I knew her. I was wrong. What she did wasn't a marriage gone bad. It was a slow execution planned over months. She poisoned me 47 times. 47 mornings she looked me in the eye, kissed me goodbye, and watched me drink coffee laced with arsenic." His jaw tightened. "When poisoning took too long, she and Travis cut brake lines, staged accidents, tried to kill my father 3 separate times. I loved you, Stephanie. I trusted you, and you tried to murder me for patents I would have shared if you'd asked. But you didn't want half. You wanted everything." Brandon returned to his seat. Judge Thornton looked at the defense table. "Mr. Marsh, does your client wish to address the court?" Stephanie rose slowly. "I'm sorry. I made terrible mistakes. I let greed control me. I never meant for things to go this far." Judge Thornton's expression didn't change. Remorse expressed only after conviction carries little weight. Stephanie sat down. Travis shook his head when asked. Judge Thornton opened a folder. "I've presided over this bench for 40 years. Rarely have I encountered crimes as calculated and cold-blooded as these. Stephanie Mitchell, you systematically poisoned your husband for 6 months. You conspired to murder him when poison proved too slow. You targeted his elderly father with 3 separate murder attempts. You forged documents. You laundered money. You suborned perjury. All for $42 million. Her voice was ice. "On conspiracy to commit murder, 20 years. On attempted murder, 2 counts, 20 years per count consecutive. On insurance fraud and obstruction of justice, 5 years consecutive. Total 65 years in the Tennessee Department of Corrections." Stephanie's face drained of color. "With eligibility for parole after serving 65%, you will be eligible for release in 42 years. You are 41 years old. You will be 83. Judge Thornton turned to Travis. "Travis Bennett, you were an active and willing participant. You cut brake lines. You helped plan murder. You betrayed a 30-year friendship for money. On conspiracy to commit murder, 15 years. On attempted murder of Brandon Mitchell, 15 years consecutive. On attempted murder of Henry Cooper, 15 years consecutive. Total 45 years. Eligibility for parole after 29 years. Travis dropped his head. Marcus Webb, per your plea agreement, 8 years federal prison credit for time served. She closed the folder. Bailiff remanded the defendants to custody. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down. Stephanie and Travis were led away. Stephanie didn't look back. Travis glanced once at Brandon, expression unreadable, then followed the guards out. In the hallway, reporters shouted questions. Gonzalez fielded them while Brandon and I slipped out a side exit. The afternoon sun was bright. We walked to where the old Tacoma sat in the parking lot. Insurance companies processing the recovery, Brandon said. $7 million they paid out on the policy. They'll get it back from Stephanie's seized assets. The patents are secured and transferred back to my name. What about the house? Selling it. Too many memories. Can't live there anymore. Shisiu, he paused. I'm buying a place closer to you. Something small. Quiet. Somewhere I can start over. We climbed into the Tacoma. I turned the key. The engine rumbled to life 160,000 miles, now still running strong. You know what's ironic? Brandon said as we pulled out of the lot. Stephanie called this truck garbage, said it was an insult. But this truck saved both our lives. It carried the message that brought us back together. It exposed their brake line sabotage. It became evidence in a murder trial. Sometimes the things people throw away are exactly what we need, I said. As we drove toward home, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The courthouse stood solid and unmoved behind us, a monument to justice finally served. It's over, son, I said. Brandon shook his head. No, Dad. The trial's over. The sentences are handed down. Stephanie and Travis will spend decades in prison. But us, we're just starting to heal. I looked at him, really looked at him. 7 months since I'd found him alive in that cabin. 7 months of investigation, depositions, testimony, trial, and verdict. 7 months of slowly learning to trust again, to sleep without nightmares, to drink coffee without checking it first. He was right. Justice had been served. The guilty were punished. The evidence had spoken. But healing, that would take time. You're right, I said. We're just beginning. We drove home through the streets of Chattanooga as the sun began its descent toward the Tennessee hills. The Tacoma carried us forward, not away from the past, but toward something new, something better, something we'd build together. June 2025. I woke up to sunlight streaming through the bedroom window. For the first time in a year, I didn't feel afraid. No conspiracies, no trials, no looking over my shoulder, wondering if someone was trying to kill me. Just a quiet Saturday morning in Hickson. Brandon arrived at 9 with coffee and donuts from the bakery on Dayton Boulevard. We sat on the back porch watching birds circle the feeder Catherine had hung 20 years ago. Sleep okay? He asked. Better than I have in months. You. Getting there. We'd both started therapy in April. Dr. Rebecca Matthews specialized in trauma and PTSD. Twice a week, I sat in her office and talked about the 8 months I'd thought my son was dead, about the 3 times someone tried to kill me, about trust and betrayal and learning to feel safe again. Brandon talked about 6 months of arsenic poisoning, about installing cameras in his own home because his wife was trying to murder him, about the guilt of involving me in his plan to expose her. It's not your fault, Doctor, Matthews told him during one of our joint sessions. You protected your father. You documented crimes. You stopped murderers. That took incredible courage. But I made him think I was dead for 8 months. To save both your lives. Context matters, Brandon. The therapy helped. Slowly, carefully, we were healing. Some days were harder than others. Some nights, I still woke up thinking I heard footsteps on the stairs or smelled something strange in my coffee. But those moments were getting fewer. "Sarah wants to meet you," Brandon said, sipping his coffee. Sarah Williams, elementary school teacher. Brandon had met her in May at a community fundraiser for the local library. She taught third grade at Hickson Elementary, loved hiking in the Smokies, and knew nothing about software patents or murder conspiracies when they first met. She was normal, kind, patient, everything Brandon needed. "She knows everything," I asked. "Everything." I told her on our second date. Figured if she was going to run better to know early. And she didn't run. She said everyone has a past. Mine just happens to involve a fake death and a murder trial. He smiled. "She said it makes me interesting." I laughed. "Smart woman." "She is. You'll like her dad. She reminds me a little of Mom, actually. The way she sees people. The way she cares." That was the highest compliment Brandon could give. The following Tuesday, I drove to the old Volkswagen plant, where I'd worked for 38 years. The factory had closed in 2019, but they'd converted part of it into a community workshop and makerspace. I walked through the doors and saw faces I hadn't seen in years. Henry Cooper. Mike Rodriguez grabbed my hand, pumping it enthusiastically. "Man, we heard about everything. You doing okay?" "Getting there." "Your boy's a hero, you know that. What he did, documenting everything, protecting you, exposing those killers that took serious guts." Word had spread through Chattanooga. The local mechanic whose son faked his death to expose a murder-for-hire plot. The old truck that saved 2 lives. The trial that captivated the community for weeks. People approached me everywhere. Grocery stores, gas stations, the hardware store, wanting to shake my hand and tell me they'd followed the trial. Some had even attended the sentencing to show support. I wasn't comfortable with the attention. Never had been. But I appreciated the support more than I could express. In late June, Brandon received his first royalty check since regaining control of his patents. $2.1 million from licensing agreements on 3 of his automation systems, the money that Stephanie had tried to kill us for. "What are you going to do with it?" I asked when he showed me the check. "Invest some, save some for the wedding." He paused. "And I'm starting a consulting firm." "What kind?" "AI automation systems for small manufacturers, companies that can't afford full engineering teams. I'll help them modernize their operations, train their staff, create local jobs. And I'm basing it right here in Chattanooga." "Not Atlanta, not Silicon Valley." Brandon shook his head firmly. "This is home, Dad. This is where people stood by us when everything fell apart. Betty and Joe and Pastor Reynolds and Detective Foster. This community saved our lives. I'm not leaving." I felt my throat tighten. "Your mother would be proud." "Yeah, I think she would." We spent most of July working on the Tacoma together. Not just routine maintenance this time, a full restoration. We stripped it down to the frame in my garage, the same garage where Travis Bennett had cut the brake lines 9 months earlier. But we were reclaiming that space, making new memories to replace the bad ones. New paint, Brandon decided. Silver metallic, like it was when you first bought it back in '05. We rebuilt the engine completely, replaced the transmission, installed new brake lines properly, professionally, safely, upgraded the interior with new seats. Brandon even installed a modern sound system with Bluetooth capability. "It's a classic now," he said one evening, stepping back to admire our work. 170,000 miles of history. "More than that," I said quietly. "It saved our lives. Twice." "Yeah." Brandon ran his hand along the hood. Greatest inheritance anyone ever got. On the last Saturday of July, we took it for a test drive. The engine purred like it was brand new. The brakes worked perfectly smooth, responsive, reliable. The fresh paint gleamed in the summer sun. We drove out to Catherine's grave and parked beneath the oak tree on the hillside. I placed fresh flowers on her headstone, yellow roses, her favorite. "Hey, Mom," Brandon said quietly, kneeling beside the granite marker. "We made it. The trial's over. Stephanie got 65 years. Travis got 45. Justice was served." I stood beside him, one hand on his shoulder. "And we're okay. Dad's doing better. The nightmares are fading, and I met someone." He paused. "Her name's Sarah. She's a teacher, 3rd grade. She's kind and patient, and she makes me laugh. She knows everything about what happened, and she's still here." The wind moved through the oak leaves above us. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell rang 3 times. "I want to bring her here," Brandon continued. "Introduce her to you properly. Let her know about our family, about what we've been through, and what we've survived." He pulled out his phone and composed a text. Sent it. A minute later, his phone buzzed with a response. He read it and smiled. She said yes, tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. "I'll be here," I said. "I know you will." Brandon stood and brushed grass from his knees. "There's someone I want Mom to meet." We climbed back into the Tacoma. As we drove home through the winding roads of Hamilton County, Brandon glanced over at me. "Hey, we're going to be okay, aren't we, Dad?" I looked at him, my son who'd survived poisoning and betrayal and had somehow come out the other side stronger. Who'd found love again, who was building a future instead of hiding from the past. "Yeah," I said. "We're going to be just fine." The Tacoma carried us home through the Tennessee Hills, engine strong and steady every mile, a reminder of what we'd survived and what we'd built together. The past was behind us. The future was just beginning. July 4th, 2025. Independence Day. The restored Tacoma gleamed in the morning sun, silver paint, catching the light like it had 20 years ago. Brandon pulled up at 9:30. Sarah sat in the passenger seat, nervous but smiling. I climbed into the back. "Ready?" Brandon asked. "Let's go." We drove to Forest Hills Cemetery, under a cloudless Tennessee sky. The radio played soft country music. Nobody spoke much. Some moments don't need words. We parked beneath the oak tree. Brandon helped Sarah out. They walked to Catherine's grave together. I hung back, giving them space. Brandon knelt and placed his hand on the headstone. "Hey, Mom, I'm back, like I promised." He looked at Sarah. "This is Sarah Williams. She teaches 3rd grade. She's kind, patient, and she makes me laugh. She knows everything about what happened, and she's still here." Sarah knelt beside him, tears already forming. "Mom, I need to ask your permission for something." He pulled out a small velvet box. Sarah's hands flew to her mouth. "Sarah Williams, I've spent the last year learning what really matters. Not money, not patents. What matters is finding someone who sees you at your worst and chooses to stay anyway." He opened the box. A simple diamond ring caught the sunlight. "Will you marry me?" Sarah was crying, nodding. "Yes. Yes, of course, yes." Brandon slipped the ring on her finger. They embraced, and I wiped my own eyes thinking about Catherine and how proud she would have been. "Thank you, Mom," Brandon whispered. "For everything." By noon, we were at Betty Anderson's house for a 4th of July BBQ. Her backyard was packed. Joe Crawford at the grill, Detective Foster, with her family, Pastor Reynolds, half the neighborhood. red, white, and blue decorations everywhere. Speech, Joe called when he saw us arrive. Brandon climbed onto Betty's porch, Sarah beside him holding up her ring. The crowd erupted in cheers. "Thank you all for coming," Brandon said. "A year ago I was hiding in a cabin documenting evidence my wife was trying to kill me. 6 months ago I was testifying in court. 3 months ago I was trying to figure out how to live again." He looked at Sarah. "And then I met someone who reminded me what normal means. Someone who didn't see a murder victim or millions in patents. She just saw me. And that changed everything." More cheers. Sarah was crying happy tears. "But I also want to announce something. My mom, Catherine Cooper, believed in education. So I'm establishing the Catherine Cooper Scholarship Fund. Full tuition assistance for underprivileged students pursuing STEM degrees at UTC and Chattanooga State. Initial endowment, $500,000. The money Stephanie tried to steal will now help kids who actually need it." The applause was deafening. Betty sobbed. Joe clapped Brandon on the back. Detective Foster raised her glass. To Catherine Cooper. And to justice finally served. To Catherine, everyone echoed. Later that afternoon, Brandon and I drove alone along the Tennessee River Parkway. Windows down. Country music playing. The Tacoma hummed smoothly. "Dad," Brandon said. "What did you learn from all this?" I thought about the will, reading the GPS device, the cabin, the evidence, the trial, the healing. 10 things, I said. 10 lessons. I counted on my fingers. 1, trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, it usually is. 2, community is everything. Betty saved my life. Joe caught the cut brake line. The church gave us support. You can't survive alone. 3, always keep evidence. You documented everything. Without that, we'd never have gotten justice. 4, greed destroys, but love endures. Stephanie and Travis threw away everything for money. We survived because we had family. 5, never underestimate old things. Everyone thought the Tacoma was worthless. It saved both our lives. 6, patience pays off. You spent months gathering evidence. You did it right. That made all the difference. 7, justice is slow, but it's worth fighting for. The trial took months. The healing is taking longer. But we got there. 8, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. I'll never forget what Stephanie did. But I'm not letting hate poison my life. 9, second chances are real. You got a second chance at life. Now you're getting one at love with Sarah. Don't waste it. 10. The greatest gift isn't always the most expensive one. Sometimes it's a beat-up truck that brings you home. Brandon was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Yeah, those are good lessons, Dad." We drove on the river, sparkling beside us, summer sun warm on our faces. For the first time in a year, I felt truly at peace. Not because the trial was over, not because Stephanie and Travis were in prison, but because I had my son back. Because we'd survived. Because we'd built something stronger than what they'd tried to destroy. As the sun began to set over the Tennessee hills, I thought about everything we'd been through. The lies, the poison, the attempts on our lives, the trial, the verdict, the healing. Justice is slow, sometimes painfully slow. It requires patience, evidence, and people willing to stand up and tell the truth. It requires community support and faith that the system will eventually work. But justice is worth fighting for. Always. Because at the end of the day, what matters most isn't money or patents or headlines. What matters is family, love, trust, The simple things that greed tries to steal but can never truly destroy. Sometimes the greatest gift you'll ever receive isn't a mansion or millions of dollars. Sometimes it's a 20-year-old truck with 170,000 miles that carries a message from your son and brings both of you home. Brandon glanced at the GPS display. Destination home, it read. He smiled. So did I. We were home. Finally. And we were together. That was all that mattered. Looking back at everything we endured, I want to share what I've learned, not as a victim, but as a survivor who almost lost everything to family betrayal. Grandpa stories like mine aren't supposed to end with murder plots and courtroom battles. But these are the grandpa stories that matter most about survival, not just success. Here's what I know. Trust your instincts, but verify everything. When that will was read, and I got an old truck while Stephanie got millions, every fiber of my being screamed something was wrong. Don't be like me, don't ignore warning signs because you want to believe the best in people. Family betrayal cuts deeper than any stranger's knife. Stephanie was the daughter I never had after Catherine died. That betrayal nearly destroyed us both. But here's what saved us: God puts people in your path for a reason. Betty caught me on those stairs. Joe found the cut brake line. Brandon documented everything. That Tacoma, the worthless inheritance, became our salvation. My advice: document everything. Trust your community. Remember that grandpa stories should teach survival resilience and the difference between revenge and justice. If you're facing family betrayal, know this healing is slow but possible. Justice takes time, but it's worth fighting for. Sometimes the greatest inheritance isn't money, it's the tools that bring you home. God was with us through every dark moment. Thank you for walking with me. Please comment your thoughts. What would you do in Henry's situation? If this resonated, please subscribe. Note: while inspired by real themes, certain elements have been dramatized for storytelling purposes.